A lot of gaming journalists like to say that Sonic had a rough transition into 3D, but I couldn't disagree more. Games like Sonic Riders, Sonic Heroes, and Shadow the Hedgehog I absolutely adored when I was younger, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
So what was my first 3D Sonic game? It actually was Sonic Adventure DX on the GameCube. I didn't even know there was a previous version at the time. I grew up with a GameCube, and that changed everything for me. Obviously, I'm here today, covering Sonic all the time and stuff, but you go in, you start that scene, where Sonic's chilling on the beach, Tails is playing his Crash, he's like, I gotta go save my buddy, and from then on, high speed, beautiful music, and I'm chilling and cruising, going through a great journey.
Christmas Day, and my uncle got me a Sega Dreamcast. I thought it was the coolest looking console ever, and within the map were all of the different stages. It wasn't just automatically moving from stage to stage like you would in a older retro version of Sonic games. And it just allowed me to see Sonic differently.
Being able to play as 6 different characters, each with their own storylines that intertwined in their own ways, made for some epic moments. Or in E102's case, a really touching and heartfelt storyline. Except Big the Cat. I hate his storyline, I hate his gameplay, I hate it.
So I couldn't go to school one day, and then magically being better around lunchtime, where it was too late to send me to school, so I got the rest of the day off and was well enough to play video games. So I did. I played Sonic Adventure. I started Sonic Adventure around midday, around lunchtime. It was great. And then I finished it around 4 hours later when the school bell rang. And I didn't know it at the time, but looking back on it, it's like, that's kind of me getting my feet wet in a speedrunning. And I just had no idea. It was great. It was so much fun. My folks weren't happy about it. They found out and they went, alright, so if you're well enough to play video games, you're going to school the next day. And it was like, oh. It's like, okay then, fair enough.
Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 shaped a lot of my childhood, especially Adventure 2. I mean, come on.
One of my first memories from that game was booting up Sonic Adventure 2 Battle and then seeing that intro scene in the first place. Sonic is running on the bridge and Shadow is just standing there, and then they do the pose, you know what I'm saying? Seeing all that was super hype. And then of course what was even more hype is when you start the game and you open the hero story and then you see Sonic the Hedgehog just rip off a piece of a helicopter and jump off the plane, and then you get straight just put into a snowboard section. I think that's what started my love for Sonic, was just seeing how raw and cool he was.
I feel like this is when the series' style started to shine, where you could actually mix this idea of a serious story, but with the silliness of the fact that I'm a blue hedgehog running around. I've got my Faker running around there. You've got levels like Metal Harbor that are so dope. You've got Pumpkin Hill, which is aesthetically so cool. It's like the levels in that game stand out so much, and they're so memorable to me, like from my childhood to this day.
What was my first 3D Sonic the Hedgehog? It was Sonic 3D Blast. That counts, right? Like, it's isometric 3D. Still technically 3D. But yeah, Sonic 3D Blast was the very first one that I played.
Going around, saving all the flickies, being trapped in those badniks, bringing them over to the warp ring, which for some reason looked like a big old onion ring. I don't know why. It was great. It was different. It was unique. And it was something that people weren't expecting from a Sonic game.
My first 3D Sonic game was none other than Sonic Unleashed on the Nintendo Wii. And why it's Sonic Unleashed for the Nintendo Wii? That's really because it's the first video game I remember seeing marketing for.
Its opening cutscene. It was this crazy CGI action-packed sequence that was such a cool first impression for someone who'd only played 2D Sonic games up until that point. It was wild.
I definitely think we saw Sega experimenting a lot with what could be done in terms of story. Obviously, in older games, there's a semi-story, but there's only so much that could be done in the older consoles, and you definitely can see them kind of be very creative and make a lot of different changes and kind of figure out what worked and what didn't.
And then obviously moving through the years, Sonic's evolved quite a lot actually. These are the 3 standout titles in my opinion. 3D Sonic, Sonic Generations is a 10 out of 10 game. Sonic Unleashed, at least for me, the Sonic stages are perfection. I quite like the 3D boost, if I'm being honest. And yeah, I'm going to give a special mention actually to Sonic 06 because I don't think it is as bad as people make out. If you can get past the crazy loading screens, this is literally Sonic Adventure 3 on a disc.
In my opinion, seeing these 3D Sonic games change and evolve in the 2000s is pretty crazy. So in the late 90s, it felt like they had this set formula with the adventure formula, and they're just going to keep building off of that. And that happens here in Sonic Heroes, and then again in Shadow the Hedgehog. And then you get to games like Unleashed, where undoubtedly it's the most different. I feel like they only use the adventure formula in like the hub world, where everything else is basically just like boost. And I gotta say, I think the boost really started to grow on me as of lately. But I'm still, I gotta be honest, I'm still partial to that adventure formula. It was just peak Sonic to me. It's what I kind of grew up on for the most part, and I don't know, I loved it so much.
To this day, I mean, we're still seeing elements of that in Sonic Frontiers, which I love. But now Sonic Frontiers is so cool because it feels like it's a mix of adventure and boost, where you have the openness of areas mixed with, the boost formula in, cyberspace levels in there.
I think all of the games in that 2000s period that all have in common a strong storyline, very emotional, or definitely tied into emotions and human nature and all that sort of stuff. A lot of messages about the meaning of life, the meaning of friendship, and what it means to be you. And that's something that really always appealed to me. Those life lessons, of course, like with many other pieces of media, carried into later life.
If I didn't play and love those early 3D Sonic games, I never would have gone back to play the games on the Mega Drive. I may have never have discovered the amazing other Sega IPs. And most importantly, I may have never have met the amazing friends I've made through the Sonic and Sega community.